Newton's Law, the crazy cycle in action. Proverbs 26:21. Troublemakers start trouble, just as sparks and fuel start a fire. As I sat there in the locker room steaming over a criticism by my military school swimming coach about not hustling, I looked up and saw a new cadet sitting on another bench just staring at me. "Quit staring at me," I said, "or I'll bust you in the mouth." I really wasn't interested in fighting, but it just came out. Obviously unruffled, he replied, "And I'll just bust you back." Something about his nonchalant, totally fearless manner told me that this guy had been in a lot of fights before. I knew of cadets who got sent to military school to cure their street fighting ways. Their street fighter's approach to life was an eye for an eye. You hit me, you'll get it back harder sort of living. Snarling demonstration of Newton's law that for every action there is always an equal and opposite reaction. Discretion quickly overcame my burst of temper. To bust him in the mouth would have started something I was not ready to finish. I threw no punch. What does this little story of a locker room tiff and Newton's law have to do with marriage? If you've ever been on the crazy cycle, you know the answer. Everything. To restate Newton's law in love and respect terms, for every disrespectful action by a wife, there can be an equal and opposite unloving reaction by her husband. And for every unloving action by a husband, there can be an equal and opposite disrespectful reaction by his wife. And the crazy cycle is on. Mix in their very different viewpoints, hers in pink and his in blue, and the crazy cycle can hum for quite a while. Newton's law can be played out in a marriage in endless ways. Sometimes it is all too easy to be unloving or disrespectful without meaning to, or realizing it until it's too late. Here are two examples. A wife casually observes how well their friend Ben is doing in his business and is puzzled when, seemingly out of left field, her husband snaps, "Well, then maybe you should have married someone like Ben." She retreats, feeling hurt and unloved, to say the least. The crazy cycle has sprung to life. A husband innocently mentions to his prone to be a bit heavy wife how well her sister is controlling her weight, and is stunned to hear, "Yes, and my brother-in-law is getting quite a pooch, almost as bad as yours." The husband retreats into a stone wall of silence. He hasn't meant to be unloving. He was just making conversation, and all he gets is disrespect. Chalk up another one for the crazy cycle. What is going on in these two scenarios? Our key verse tells us that troublemakers start trouble, just as sparks and fuel start a fire. But neither spouse meant to be a troublemaker. She may realize that she might appear a bit disrespectful, but his unloving reaction is way over the top. And it may dawn on him that he may appear unloving, but she should know he didn't mean it. How come all the contempt in her voice? And that look on her face could freeze a water buffalo in its tracks. Granted, in both situations we could claim that the offended spouse was too sensitive and responded immaturely. Nonetheless, accidental sparks, unwise remarks, ignite and fuel a fire, and vroom goes the crazy cycle. Newton's law is always at work. Your spouse is sensitive and vulnerable, and so are you. Sometimes it is no accident. The crazy cycle can spin even more when anger goads you into wanting to make trouble. So when you hear what you think is a verbal punch and are tempted to throw a nasty response, step back. Was that really the crazy cycle starting to growl? I know whereof I speak. Sarah and I sometimes wind up squaring off, and then one of us has the good sense to say, "So do you want to get on the crazy cycle?" That's not a bad way to diffuse a situation. But an even better approach is to remember Newton's law and counter it with another law that will keep the crazy cycle in its cage. Thou shalt throw no punch. Ask the Lord for wisdom in how you talk to each other. Ask forgiveness for any verbal punches that may have been thrown, knowingly or unknowingly, and thank Him for your commitment as a couple to treat each other with love and respect. Write down some ways Newton's law can operate negatively because of what you do or say around your spouse. Then make it a point not to do or say these things. Why spark a fire?